Hello. Hello. Good evening, chat. Hello. Hello, wizard. Hello. Ah. Since this is pre-stream and I haven't gotten anything to eat, I'm just gonna eat. Thank you, Adonis, for the 25 months. I'm gonna have myself a little snack of chicken nuggets. Enjoyed the pre-stream ASMR. Alright, it's only a little bit, so it won't take too long. So how about that Genshin McDonald's, huh? I heard they kind of fucked it up. Like, no one is getting their codes and shit. I think that's kind of funny. They underestimated the power of edible paimon. Well, good on you, wizard. There are better burger joints elsewhere. Like, I would recommend Habit Burger personally. Also, this weekend, I'm gonna be going to a night market. So there'll be no stream this weekend. It'll just be a one night thing, but afterwards, I'm gonna be selling at LA Comic Con. So there may not be a lot of streams. But that's fine. Just letting you guys know. Hey, I look like I'm eating my Halloween candy. At least it's a good time to wait for people to pile up. I figured I'd play Umineko again. So I'm very bad at keeping tabs on that game. It's just really hard to stay consistent with a visual novel, especially one this long. But now is a perfect time of year to revisit it. Can't promise I'll even finish it, because I don't think I can finish it like in October unless I play it every day. Maybe I'll keep it around for like November and December. We'll see though. It just strains my voice a lot. But I do have other stuff planned for October. It's like the one time I wish the game had like an English dub. That way I don't have to read as much, you know? Doesn't help it. It's like all of it is like the dialogues in Japanese. Oh yeah, I forgot to turn on the thing. I just forget to turn on the thing. Okay. There. 1K not spent, not wasted. Okay, now I finished eating. Let me just set up Umineko real quick. Now, if you guys need a refresher, do not fret. I have the VODs in my YouTube channel, so they're properly archived. Just exit my room. Wow. We returned once more. This godforsaken mansion. Those godforsaken seagulls. Anyway, let me see. Change the gameplay environment. Load. Okay. Oh god. My save's not here? I swear it's been a long time since I touched upon this game. Just give me a minute. Now we can switch to like Moemon or some shit. I don't know. Stato. Noto. Where are my saves? ちょっと待ってくださいなね. Listen to some anime songs while I sort this out. Did you guys enjoy that recap? A very quick recap. I think we fixed it now. Maybe. Sorry for the delay. Now we get back to reading, I guess. All that could be heard was the sound of the rain, the voices from the kids' television program that Mario was watching. Ah! No, that's not what I wanted. Fuck. Okay. Hold on, I go back. Maybe. I've just got too used to playing Pokemon. And I got like confused, like what controller do I press again? At first, Maria returned her stares with a dubious look. But then they realized that they weren't trying to blame her for anything. She ignored them and wanted to immerse herself in a television program. Children wordlessly sat down on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from the state of shock, though they all cried and mourned so much that they just vaguely sat there, they're expressionless. Only Kenneth had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean that he had been able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into the emptiness. Hideyoshi fidgeted as he remembered that horrible scene, keep muttering. Unbelievable. That can't be something of this world. This is the work of the devil. Every once in a while, he turned to these questions and bounced them off Nanjo. But Nanjo, in a calm, doctorly manner, kept repeating that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene. And that until the police arrived, he wouldn't know anything. However, Nanjo only appeared calm by comparison to Hideyoshi, who could not contain his agitation and fear. Also, hello Ice. You missed some scuff or unless you were lurking, but otherwise I'm probably gonna have to cut a lot of that out from the VOD, so yeah. If you needed to catch up on Umineko, just watch my VODs on YouTube. In fact, Nanjo had only received a huge shock and his face was deathly pale. Maybe it was because of their attitude that Natsuhi tried to rise to the challenge and take control. Natsuhi was apparently unchanged from her normal attitude, as she briskly gave direction. Watashi wa. I will head to where father is. That thing lower a bit more. It's so loud. Certainly. I wonder if you would allow me to tag along, Natsuhi-san. Since Kraus-ni-san is gone now, the task of aiding father has been left to me. It would be improper for me to relax here while relying entirely on you. Natsuhi was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive actions in a situation like this. Hold on, let me save real quick. Okay. It seemed that she was claiming that with Kralstedt, the one to take responsibility should not be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Possibly she was not happy that Natsuhi was ignoring her and handling matters herself in this extreme situation. Of course, even Ava's mind has been blank from the shock until just now. She only returned to herself after Natsuhi started giving orders. You may do as you please. Natsuhi walked out without saying anything more. Ava followed behind her. Mere moments after they left, Kumasawa ran into the parlor. Since she wasn't the kind of person to run around, it would be normal to sense that something had happened. But since everyone has been stricken by that earlier shock, none of them took any notice of this trivial difference. Madam! If you're looking for Natsuhi-san, she went to see father. She'll probably be back soon. What happened, Kumasawa-san? That is the dining hall. Blood! Blood! Everyone in the parlor room turned to listen. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Just like how any container has a limit to how much you can put in. It felt like they could accept any more tragedies beyond what just already happened. So they all thought it. I hope I misheard that. What? In the dining hall?
朝食の準備に食堂に配膳に行ったら
I went to the dining hall to set up breakfast. Ow, 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 ow. The first to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses and they chased after him. Battler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after the other, but they didn't find any changes that would have caused Kumasawa-san to go pale. To those who had viewed the gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa-san, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really was traces of blood on the floor. Compared to the terrible scene, it was not very dramatic. However, if you calmly thought about it, this definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood. There's a puddle of blood here. What in the world? It appears that a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say that they were killed here last night. It would seem to mean that. We've been talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have broke in. Father, when did you two let yourselves out in the meeting and go to sleep? It was a little past midnight. So, sometime after that is possibly when it happened. Christ. I can't take this. Milady, stay strong. After seeing that hell on earth in the storehouse, I think I can handle this much. Really? Great for you! Feel like my head's gonna freaking explode, man. This is the dining hall, you know. This is where every day I would eat, complain about school, complain about homework. Talk to Dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me. Milady. It wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor. I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will be really important to the police. Don't you think it would be bad if you trampled all over it? Battler proposed that this slightly powerful voice as together with Canon, he grabbed the pale and shaking Jessica's shoulders. Everything is just as Battler has said. There is nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room. Nanjo spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse had felt like something not of this world, it at least was in a place far from here, a place we would be able to cut ourselves off and run away, from which I had helped everyone to keep on going. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion's main wing, and this, as Jessica said, it was supposed to be one of the more relaxing places within the mansion. It was the same place where all of the relatives would have lunch and dinner yesterday. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us of that horrible spectacle in the storehouse. Forced us to accept that we really hadn't been able to run away from the scene of that tragedy. Yeah.
わしも同感や。
I agree too.
この部屋には犯人の痕跡が残ってるかもわからんしな。
This killer might have left traces in this
素
room.
人のわしらがかき回すべきとちゃうで。
Hold on. I gotta fix something. Background title, no. Next. Right back. Okay, that's why it was so loud. Freaking thing is maximum. Yeah. Okay, next. Text box window, type B. Exit. Okay, that's much better. Can raise the volume a little bit more. Emma just like us shouldn't stir the place up. Let's leave quickly.
はよはよ。
Come on now. Hideyoshi would also understand the meaning of what Beatrice had said and push everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood and any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his words. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall, almost as though the last person in their room would be trapped in there, all alone. Once in the hall, we lent a shoulder to Kumasawa-san, who was also leaning against the wall, still trembling, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then Genji returned.
お、源氏さん。
Well, Genji-san,
警察に連絡はつきましたか。
we're able to contact the police.
それが申し訳ございません。
I can only offer my sincerest apologies.
無線機の故障か、それ以外の理由によるものかわかりませんが。
Whether it was failure of the radio or something else that had caused it, I cannot tell, but...
なんや、警察に連絡がつかんのか。
What? You can't reach the police?
電話も無線もどっちもダメなんか。
You tried the police and the radio and both failed?
申し訳ございません。
My apologies.
月曜の朝に船が来ることになっていますので、
The boat
そ
will
の
be
船
arriving
の
on
通
Monday
信機
morning,
を借りることができると思います。
and I believe we will be able to borrow their communication equipment.
この島には船はないんか。
Isn't there a boat on this island?
新島の警察署までちょっくら行ってくることはできんのか。
Can we just take a little trip out to Nijima Police Department?
秀吉さん、この天気では無理だ。
Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible with this weather.
少なくとも台風が通り過ぎるまではどうにもなりません。
At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes by us.
クラウス様のボートは今修理中で島にございません。
Krause's boat is being repaired and not on the island.
ですので月曜の船を待つほかないかと。
Therefore, I am afraid we have no option but to wait for Monday's boat.
そんなアホな話があるか。
How could this happen?
6人も死んだんやで。
6 people are dead.
そして電話も無線も通じず、船もない。
The phones or radio aren't working and there's no boat.
台風が過ぎて船が来るまで、つまり明日の朝までわしらは警察にも連絡できず、この島におれっちゅうことなんか。
So until the typhoon passes and the boat comes until tomorrow morning, we just have to stay here on this island unable to contact the police?
ってことはつまり
Which that means... Hold on. One last fix. I just want to adjust it. The background a little louder. Yeah. Okay.
俺たちだけじゃなく おじさんたちを殺した犯人もこの島から出られず足止めってことだな。
Not just us, but the criminal who killed everyone was also confined to this island.
そういうことになるね。
That certainly follows.
みんなを殺した犯人はまだこの島にいる。
The culprit who killed everyone is still on the island.
親父たちを殺した奴はこの島から逃げ出せずまだ潜んでやがるってことかよ。
So the bastard who killed Dad and the others can't get off the island and he's still fucking hiding somewhere?
くそくそくそくそ
Damn it, damn it, damn it.
見つけ出してやるぜ。警察になんか引き渡すもんか。
Fine, you motherfucker. You think I'll hand you over to the police?
私がこの手でやっ先にしてやる。
Tear you to shreds myself. Maria finally realized that something was odd in the parlor. Or rather than noticing something is odd. It was probably better to say that she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting too excited about something only she didn't know about.
ジェシカお姉ちゃん、
Jessicaお姉ちゃん、
誰か死んじゃったの？
Did someone die? The way she spoke was completely calm. Just as though she was talking about characters in a TV drama. As though it didn't affect her at all. Nothing at all. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though trying to say, can't you tell just by looking at me? Overwhelmed with grief, she flared up against Maria.
死んじまったぜ。みんな。
They all died. Everyone. Everyone.
私の親父もトトラの父さんと母さんも
My dad, Bathur's mom and father.
幸田さんもシャノンも
Goda-san and Shannon.
そしてマリアの母さんも
And even your mother too.
よすんだジェシカちゃん。
Stop it, Jessica-chan.
悲しいのは君だけじゃない。
You aren't the only one who's sad.
マリアさん、
Maria-san.
ショックだろうが
I
聞
know,
いてください。
I know this will come as a shock, but listen.
あなたのお母さんがな、
Your mother
死んでしまいました。
has died.
ママが死んじゃった？
Mom is dead.
ああ、誰かに殺されちまった。
Yeah, someone killed her.
悲しいだろうがよ。心をしっかり。
I know it's sad, but stay strong.
何人死んじゃった？
How many people died?
6人だぜ。
6 people.
6人だ。
6.
くそくそくそ。
Shit, shit, shit.
あんな残酷なことしやがって。
How can you do something so cruel?
踊ってもんがあるだろうがよ。人間ならよ。
There's a limit how cruel you can be if you're a human.
誰だか知らねえが、犯人は人間じゃねえぜ。
I don't know who it is, but the killer's not human.
血の色が赤いわけがねえ。
There's no way their blood is red.
犯人は人間じゃない。
Killer's not human.
鍵が選んだ。生贄なだけ。
Just, chosen by the...
え？
あれ？
おい、マリア、今、なんて言った？
Maria, did you say something just now? Maria had just said something. But since the words were so remotely separate from the flow and the context of the conversation for a second, I couldn't understand them. As I was about to ask her to repeat it, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Aunt Natsuhi's loud voice coming from the entrance of the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsuhi and Aunt Eva had returned from the trip to see grandfather.
無線でも連絡できない？
You can't contact them with the radio.
こんな時に使えなくて何のための防災無線ですか？
If you can't use it at a time like this, why do you even have the emergency radio?
申し訳ございません。
My apologies.
毎年保守点検はさせているはずなのですが。
I believe it was having an annual maintenance inspections, but
ほら、光をチカチカさせるみたいな船舶信号ってあるじゃない？
wait, what about one of those boat signaling devices where you can flicker the light on and off?
そういうので向こうの島に連絡することはできないのかしら？
Couldn't you use something like that to contact the next island?
そのような設備はございません。
We do not have such equipment.
申し訳ございません。
My apologies. Just then Kumasawa-san came pushing a server cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we would be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi has ordered her to bring it to the parlor.
なぜ朝食をこちらに？
Why are we eating breakfast here?
ああ、夏木さん、それは後で話す。
Natsuhi-san, I'll tell you later.
それよりエヴァ、お父さんはどうなんや？
More importantly, Eva, how was father?
ご一緒でないところを見ると、このような事態になっても部屋から出ませんか。
Judging by the fact he is not with you, he won't even leave his room for a situation like this.
いないわ。
He isn't there.
部屋は空っぽだったのよ。
The room was empty.
なんやて？
What the?
こんな時にどこ行ったんや？
Where could he have gone at a time like this?
親方様が書斎を出られたというのですか？
Did you say that the master has left the studies?
そうです。私も驚いています。
Ooh, the plot thickens. That's right. I am as surprised as you.
いつの間に部屋を出たのやら。
I wonder when he left his room.
あなたたちに心当たりはないのですか？
Do either of you have an idea? Nancy looked at Genji and Kanan as she said this. She probably thought that the servant permitted the one-winged eagle who was served directly under him would know of a place he might go. However, it seemed to be the other way around. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than anyone else had impossible for him to leave his room.
僕たちにも見当がつきません。
Well, even we have no idea.
ご存知の通り、親方様はあの書斎の中にお休みの場所からご不浄まで全てを設けさせました。
As you all know, the master had everything set up within the study from a place to sleep to a bathroom.
親方様があの部屋をお出になることなどよっぽどのことがない限り
I cannot imagine him leaving the room except under very exceptional circumstances.
となると、なんや？
That case, what?
そのよっぽどのことがあったって考えるのが自然だっちゅうことになるんか。
Isn't it natural to think that one of those very exceptional circumstances came up?
まだそうと決まったわけではありません。
We still don't know whether that is the case.
とにかく気まぐれな方ですから。現状をご存知なく、お一人で散歩をされている可能性もあります。
Anyway, he is a fickle person, so it's possible that he went for a walk by himself without knowing the current situation.
仮にそうだとしたら、一刻も早く現状をお知らせして、ご指示を仰がねばなりません。
If that is the case, we would have to tell him what has happened and ask for instructions as fast as we can.
そうね。
That's right.
考えたくはないけど、お父様の身に何かあったのかもしれないしね。
Although I don't want to think about it, it's possible that something has happened to him, isn't it?
そのような不吉なことは考えたくもありません。
I don't even want to think about something that ominous. No one has seen Kinzo since the 6 horrible corpses have been found. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radios weren't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. It looked like a typhoon would have leave tomorrow and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. Everyone had lost their composure at the very extremely sudden tragedy. A heavy silence, a sense of impatience. Even though they need to do something, they couldn't think of anything. Some of them became irritated, while others merely held their hands on hit their heads on their hands. But not one of them could explain what was occurring on this island of Rokkenjima. After that, we sat in the parlor and wordlessly chewed through the breakfast that Kumasawa-san had made. Of course, this was right after something like this had happened. No one had any appetite. However, we realized that not eating would weaken our bodies. I would not eat in a situation like this. I would have no appetite whatsoever. It would also be rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san had taken a taste for Western vegetables, one that Goda-san had probably special ordered on the purpose of some extravagantly fancy dish and cooked them in the Japanese style, making them turn into an unpleasant color. As to what Goda-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then I couldn't even imagine it. If I had to think about it, it would remind me of the way Goda-san had died, and the inside of my mouth would be filled with a sour taste. For the time being, everyone pretended to eat, but there was no hope for anyone making any headway into the meal. Then everyone had brought out the speed of the current situation. First off, that Uncle Klaus, my dad, Kirei-san, Auntie Rosa, Goda-san, and Shannon-chan had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse and cruelly mutilated corpses. And that despite that, we were unable to use phones, radios, and still couldn't contact the police. So then the typhoon passed and there was nothing we can do. Furthermore, grandfather, who had hoped might be able to show a little leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared at some point. Goda-san hadn't had breakfast, so grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk by now, he should have been stopping back to whine about how hungry he was. And yet, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he had become caught up in the earlier crime. Natsuki and Adeva had said that on the return trip from going to see Kinzo, they had called out to him every morning looking for him, but were not able to find him. If you think about the timing of it all, it was possible best to think that he had been caught up in a crime. If the culprit had taken the trouble to move the corpses of Dad and the rest who we figured had been killed in the dining hall all the way to the storehouse, then maybe they could have killed Grandfather, moved his corpse to some strange location, and had simply not found it yet. No one actually said it, but this theory seemed extremely convincing.
私たちはお屋敷の戸締まりを確認してきます。
We will go check on all the windows and doors are
お父
closed.
様も念入りに探さなければなりません。
We must also carefully search for father.
子供たちはこの部屋を出ないように。
Children, make sure you do not leave this room.
エヴァさんと秀吉さんは申し訳ありませんが、ここで子供たちと一緒にいてください。
Eva-san, Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children.
南條先生もお願いいたします。
Dr. Nanjo as well.
わかりました。
I understand.
ここでお待ちしています。
We will wait here. And Natsuki led the servants Genji, Kumasawa-san, Kanon-kun out of the parlor. All that left was Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi. And the four of us children of a total of 7 people. Thank you, ZooTube. Thank you, Dance, for gifting ZooTube a sub.
みんなで仲良くテレビでも見て待ってよな。
Let's all stick together and maybe watch some TV while we wait.
しかし日曜日の午前中はろくな番組やっとらへんな。
So they can't get any phone signal, radio signal, but the TV somehow still works. Let's all stick together and maybe watch some TV while we wait. Gee, Sunday daytime TV sure doesn't have many good shows on, huh? Uncle Hideyoshi tried to stir up his gloomy atmosphere, acting cheerfully. Good show, watch it, watch it. Ew.
お、そうか。
Oh, really?
マリアちゃんはテレビ見るか。
You wanna watch TV, Maria-chan?
じゃ、おじさんと一緒に見ような。
Come watch it with your uncle. Maria was the only one who played along. Even though Maria had told her mothers that she didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotion. Was 9 really this young in age? No one else was feeling the slightest bit of like joining in, and they each sank into their sofas and let their minds go blank.
兄貴、聞いていいか。
Can I ask you something, Aniki?
なんだい。
What is it?
さっき倉庫で
Just now in the storehouse?
兄貴はシャノンちゃんの指輪の話をしたよな。
You said something about Shannon-chan and the ring.
あれ、送ったのは兄貴か。
Did you give it to her? Aniki didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both of his eyes. There could be no clearer response.
よせよバトラー。
Quit it, Battler.
少しは察しろよ。
Have some tact.
だな。
You're right.
悪いことを聞いたぜ。
I shouldn't have asked that.
そうさ、
That's right.
僕だよ。
It was me.
彼女に夕べ求
Last
婚したん
night,
だ。
I proposed to her.
その時指輪を渡した。
That was when I gave her the ring.
明日になったらそれを好きな指にはめて返事としてくれって。
I told her that tomorrow she should put it on whatever finger she wanted and her answer.
気ざったらしいことを言ってね。
I must have sounded so full of myself. That ring had been on the finger of Shannon-chan's left hand.
私さ、
Actually,
数年前からシャドウに相談を受けてたぜ。
I've been having talks with Shannon for several
ジョ
years
ージ兄さんのことでさ。
about you, George Nissan.
なんて言ってたのかな。
I wonder what she could have said.
シャノンは嘘をつくのが下手だったからよ。
Shannon was always really bad at
ジ
lying.
ョージ兄さんのことを言ってるのはすぐにバレバレでさ。
It was instantly obvious that it was you she was talking about.
自分は使用人の身分だけど親しくしてもいいのだろうかとか、男の人の好きそうなものは何かとか、どういう服を着たら喜ぶかとか、そんなことをいろいろとさ。
She asked whether it would be okay if she got close to you. Being just a servant, she asked about stuff like that kind of things. Do boys like and what kind of clothes she should wear to make them happy? Lots of stuff like that.
なんつうのか、そのまあ焼けたぜ。
How should I say it? Well, I was jealous of her.
それが婚約指輪を渡されて、
All that and right after she handed the engagement ring.
そこでおしまいかよ。
It's just all over.
価値観は人それぞれだけどよ。
I know people value things differently,
男から求婚されるってのは
but being proposed to by a
ある
man
意味人生の到達点なんだと思うんだよ。
isn't the way the high point of a girl's life.
だからきっと
So I'm sure
昨夜のシャノンは心の底から、いや生まれてから今までの中で一番幸せだったと思うぜ。
So I'm sure last night I think Shannon was happy from the bottom of her heart. No, the happiest she'd ever been since she was born. Very pain pickle. Very pain pickle, Nisu. George Aniki, without raising his head, sighed deeply. There may be tears as risen to his eyes.
シャノンは夕べゲストハウスの当番だったらしいんだ。
It seems that Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night.
でもシャノンは僕と一緒にゲストハウスに帰るのを恥ずかしがって
But because she was too embarrassed to go back to the guest house with me,
お屋敷に行ってしまった。
she went over to the mansion.
シャノンの気持ちを察しろよ。
Think about Shannon's feelings.
婚約指輪をもらえばどんなに予告されてたって普通は舞い上がっちまって頭は真っ白になっちまうぜ。
When you receive an engagement ring, no matter how much you prepare for it beforehand, it's normal to feel so elated your mind goes blank.
気恥ずかしくて仕方なかったんだろうよ。
She must have been so embarrassed she didn't know what to do with herself.
それでシャノンは当番でないはずのお屋敷へ行き
Then Shannon, even though she hadn't been on duty there, she went to the mansion.
事件に巻き込まれてしまった。
She got caught up in all of this.
僕が
If only I hadn't,
あの日
on that day,
あの場所で
in that place,
指輪なんか渡さなければ
given her that ring,
サヨは事件に巻き込まれなかったんだ。
Shannon wouldn't have, Sayo wouldn't have been caught up in that accident. Rest in pepperoni, big titty anime girl.
兄貴
Aniki-kun.
それだけは違うぜ
It's not like that.
断じて違う
Definitely not like that.
だからそれ以上泣くんじゃね
Don't cry anymore. You'll be daijobu.
バトラ君
Batawa-kun.
そっとしてあげなさい
Leave him be. After those words from Auntie Eva, I stopped talking to him. Misplaced words of comfort might actually hurt him. Jessica sat down next to Anakin and quietly put her arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Anakin and Shannon's love since the beginning, who had been discussing relationship with Shannon, could comfort Anakin now. I went over to Auntie Eva and sat down the opposite of the
バトラ
sofa.
君は強いわね
Bata-kun, you really are strong.
もうだいぶしっかりしているように見えるわよ
Looks like you get a good hold on yourself.
まあそのほら愛の深さが傷の深さじゃないですか
Well, look, the depth of love becomes the depth of a wound, right?
俺は別にあんなクソ親父同志の方が知ったことじゃないし
The old bastard I couldn't care less about no matter how he snuffed it.
キリエさんは気の毒ですがまあ本当の親ってわけじゃないですしね
I feel bad about Kiri-san, but well, she wasn't actually my parent.
あら
My.
という割にはさっきすっごく大泣きしてたわよ
But on the other hand, you were crying a lot back then, right?
まあ育ての親に対する恩はあのくらい泣けば OK かと思いまして
Well, I didn't think that at least that much crying was due to gratitude to the parent who raised me.
そのあたりの切り替えの速さやドライなあたりは本当にルドルフ譲りね
The way you can switch your mood quickly like that and your dry tone must have come from Rudolph.
あの子は昔から激しく喜んだり悲しんだり怒ったりしたけれど
That kid would have get violently happy, sad, and angry.
すぐにケロリと平静を取り戻したわ
But he would always regain his cool immediately afterwards.
そんなことはないっすよ
It's nothing like that.
俺だってまだまだ心のショックから立ち直れちゃいません
Haven't really been able to get over the shock yet either.
ただ俺がみんなと違うのはそれによってどういう感情が生み出されるかってことだと思います
I think it's just that the emotion that rose up for me were different from everyone else.
どういうこと
What do you mean? I was acting much calmer than George Anthony and Jessica were. That wasn't because my sadness was less intense. I already swung back to normal. It was because my sadness has been gradually replaced by different
悲
emotions.
しいっていうよりは腹立たしいって気持ちなんすよ
Rather than sadness, it's more like irritated.
どこのドイツがこんなことをしやがったのか
What bastard did this? Where the hell is he?
ひよこっつらに一発お見舞いしてやらないことには腹の虫が収まらねえんです
Feel like I can't settle down until I smacked him upside the face. That's what I really wanted to do. It's like I couldn't allow myself to just sit here, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my
親
knees.
父たちが殺されて以降この島は台風に包まれたままです
Since the time Dad and everyone else was killed, the island was remained covered by the typhoon.
つまりこれだけの上等を決めてくれやがった野郎はまだこの島の中にいるってことです
In short, that means that the asshole could pull this disgusting, detestable bullshit is still somewhere on the island.
そういうことになるわね
Certainly does.
今も暗い森のどこかに身を潜めているのかしら
Wonder if they're hiding themselves somewhere in the dark forest even now. I felt like I had a very similar conversation with Kitty-san the night before. That's right. After the letter of the person who claimed to be Beatrice appeared at the dinner table last night, we had talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists.
エヴァおばさん
And Eva,
この殺人昨夜のベアトリーチェの手紙と何か関連があるんでしょうかね
these murders. Do you think they had something to do with the letter from Beatrice last night?
ああ例の
Ah, that thing.
さあどうかしらね
Well, I wonder.
あの手紙はお父様が遺産問題に絡みたくて出した怪文書という見方で兄弟は一致したんだけれども
I wonder, all of us siblings were in agreement of the mysterious letter had been sent to further complicate the problem of father's
それ
inheritance.
と今朝の事件に関係があ
Hold
る
on,
か
let
は
me adjust something.
今の段階では分かりかねるわね。
Volume was just getting loud again. There we go. Well, I wonder, although all of us siblings were in agreement of the mysterious letter been sent to further complicate the problem of father's inheritance, as to whether that at the intendants of the morning had related, it's impossible to tell at this stage.
あの手紙、本当にベアトリーチェなんて魔女がマリアに渡したんすかね。
Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice?
まさか
How could it be?
全部お父様の仕組んだ茶番でしょ。
Oh, it was a farce devised by father, wasn't it?
「シャノンちゃんあたりに肖像画のドレスを着させてマリアちゃんを騙したんでしょ。
He made someone like Shannon-chan wear the dress from the portrait and deceive Maria-chan, right?
お父様らしい手の込みすぎたいたずらだと思うけど。
Isn't that like kind of a entrance and prank father would pull?
ゆうべ、キリエさんとベアトリーチェは実在するんだろうかって話をしたんですけど、
Last night I talked with Kiri-san about whether Beatrice actually existed.
キリエさんも俺たち18人の中にベアトリーチェがいるだろうと言ってましたね。
And she also said that Beatrice was probably one of the 18 of us.
そんなの当然じゃない。
Isn't that obvious?
この島には私たちしかいないのよ。
Someone else in this island besides
な
us.
ら私たちの中の誰かがベアトリーチェを語ったに決まってるじゃない。
So obviously it must have been someone amongst us pretending to be Beatrice.
この島には俺たち以外はいないっすか。
Someone else but us on the island, huh?
当然でしょ。
Obviously right.
私たち以外の誰がここにいるっていうの？
Who else could be here?
この島には私たちしかいない。
No one is on this island except us.
18人しかいない。
There are only 18 people.
ならベアトリーチェを語るのも18人の中の誰かしかいないじゃない。
So the one who pretend to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18. Kiri-san had denied that they were the 19th person by flipping over the chessboard. Even though Auntie Eva hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion at least was the same. Except it was the case our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, we were able to dismiss the matter as just someone's prank. However, if we denied the existence of the 19th person at this point, matters are not so jovial. In other words,
19人目がいないなら、
if there is no 19th
親父
person,
たちを殺した犯人も18人の中にいるってことになっちまうじゃないですか。
then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of the 18th, right?
つまり今この屋敷にいる誰かが殺したってことになる。
So in other words, that would mean that someone in this very mansion, the one who killed them, they're gonna try to cannibalize each other. Figuratively, not literally. Auntie Ava smiled meaningfully. It looked like Auntie had thought that this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning.
犯人は倉庫の中に6人の遺体を運び込んだわ。
The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 onto the
で
storehouse.
もよく倉庫の中に運び込めたわよね。
But they sure did a good job getting to that storehouse, didn't they?
あのシャッターは常に閉められていて施錠されていたそうよ。
That shutter was always kept closed and locked, I'm told.
つまり倉庫内に運び込むにはシャッターの施錠を開ける必要があった。
In other words, in order to carry them to the storehouse, the culprit would need to lock the shutter.
わかる？
Understand?
たまたまその日シャッターが開けっぱなしになってた可能性は？
Is there any possibility that the shutter was left open by mistake that day?
使用人たちは常に閉めていると言ってたわ。
The servant said it's always shut.
つまり鍵を使用人室から持ち出さなくては倉庫は絶対に開けられない。
In other words, Unless they brought the keys out of the server room, they definitely couldn't have opened the storehouse.
鍵は使用人室の一つしかないんすかね。
Is the only key the one in the servant room?
源氏さんはそうだと言ってるわ。
Genji-san said so, yes.
ということは犯人はそのたった一つの倉庫の鍵のありかを知っていて持ち出した。
Which means that the culprit knew where the single key was stored and took it out.
さっきカノン君が使用人室に鍵を戻すところを見たわ。
Just now I saw Kano-kun return the key to the servant room.
壁にびっしりと鍵がかけられていて、とても素人にはどこに何がかけてあるのかわからなかった。
Packed with keys, and I don't think that a novice would know where and to what those keys went to.
犯人はその中から倉庫の鍵を見事選び出したの。
The culprit was magnificently able to select the keys and the storehouse from all of those.
しかも札も何もついていない鍵を手にしてバラ庭園裏にある倉庫の鍵だと理解した。
Furthermore, even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was a key to the storehouse behind the rose garden.
ついでに言うと倉庫の場所すら理解していた。
And while I'm at it, they also knew where the storehouse was.
もっとはっきり断言するわ。
I'll say it even more clear.
犯人は使用人室の内部にも熟知している。
The servant, I'll say even clearer, the culprit knew the inside of the servant room as well. Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, no explanation would have been necessary. However, the one key at the storehouse was in the servant room, and the storehouse with a large group of other keys, such as a novice would not have been able to tell them apart. This means that the culprit is someone who had used to going in and out of the servant room and knew well where all the key was. The family didn't normally go into their servant's room, which means that
ってことは使用人の誰かが犯人。
which means that one of the servants is the culprit.
悪いけどそれ以上はおばさんも言えないわよ。
I'm sorry, but even your auntie can't say any more than that.
でも一つだけ教えられることがあるわ。
However, I'll tell you one thing.
なんすか。
What's that?
犯人たちは複数で、そして十分な武装をしていたと考えられるわ。
The culprits, she would probably say there were culprits in the plural, and what's more, they're well armed.
だってそうでしょ。
You see it, don't you?
食堂にいた兄さんたち4人を一度に襲って殺し、合計6人分の遺体をようようと
They
バラ
had-
庭園の向こうの
They had
倉
to
庫まで
assault
運ん
four
で
in the dining hall and
悪
kill
趣味
them
な
all
化
at
粧と
once.
落書きを施している。
Drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse beyond the rose garden and scribbled that disgusting makeup on their
これ
faces.
だけのことを単独犯で行えるはずもないでしょ。
There's no way that a single culprit could carry all those out on their own, right? It was impossible. It might have been a single person spent together on it, but what would have been taken ages? It was probably best to think that a significant number of people had been a part of it.
ひゅーってことはエヴァおばさんは使用人の人たちがみんなグルだろって言ってんすか。
So what you mean is, maybe all the servants were in cahoots.
静かになさいな。
Please keep it quiet, okay?
憶測で言っちゃ悪いわよ。
It's bad to speak from speculation
本当
alone.
にそうだったらどうするつもり？
Besides, what would you do if it really was true?
彼らは私たちを生かして返さないでしょうね。
They might not let us return alive.
しかも兄さんたち4人をやすやすと殺した相手なのよ。
This is an opponent who had no trouble killing Nissan and the 3 others.
今この部屋に残っていてまともに戦えそうな人間はうちの家族の3人にせいぜいバトラ君で4人ってところ。
The only people in this room right now who look like they could put up a decent fight are the 3 people in my family, and maybe you as well. 4 at most.
状況は昨晩と何も変わらない。
Situation is no different than it was last night.
つまり犯人にとって残る私たちを皆殺しにするなんて簡単なことなのよ。
In short, it'll be really easy for the culprit to massacre the rest of us. I have been playing detective with Auntie Eva out of desire to expose the person who killed Dad and arrest before the police did. If I could manage to skillfully penetrate the culprit's identity, I wanted to stick the evidence in their face. I had gotten into my head that if I did, the culprit would give up and surrender, just like in one of those detective movies. However, the culprit only surrenders there because they are in a situation where resisting would be futile. The culprit behind these incidents on the island were far from helpless, and might be able to massacre all the remaining people in the island. On top of that, this island was like a giant locked room, cut off from the outside world by a typhoon. So if they had a full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and cover up their handiwork, in short, we weren't in the kind of safe atmosphere where they would entertain ourselves by playing detective. On the contrary, we were just at the stage where we had to be scared stiff. Since playing detective might displease the culprits, it caused them to repeat another mass murder.
あくまでも可能性の問題よ。
Well, it is just a possibility, right?
でも私は使用人の人たちをまだ信用できないわね。
But I can't bring myself to trust the servants, yes.
それに私は使用人だけを疑ってるわけじゃないわ。
And it doesn't mean that they're the ones I suspect.
さらに黒幕がいるかもしれないと思ってるわ。
I also think there might be some mastermind behind all this.
黒幕？
Mastermind?
どうしてですか？
Why do you say?
勘よ。
It's just a feeling.
使用人は書いて字のごとし。
Think about what the word servant literally means.
誰かに使用されて手足となる存在。
It means they serve someone, they do someone's bidding, right?
殺されたのは後宮家の親族ばかり。
Everyone who was killed has some relation to the Shinomiya family.
なら、その結果で利害が発生する人間が関わるのは当然。
So it would be natural for someone with interest in that result to be involved. This was so plain and clear. The Shinomiya family were currently right in the middle of discussing how to distribute the inheritance if grandfather died. If this followed the formulaic plot used to death by many classic mystery novels, it would definitely be a crime by someone with the ties to the Yoshimiya family and who had entangled an inheritance problem. Auntie had probably also read a few books in that genre. Her theory did have a few one-sided conclusions to it, but it was a run-of-the-mill idea that could surely hit upon. I think anyone who had suspected the servants, even if their logic was different, especially the talk revolving around the key to the shutter, that was enough to make it easy to suspect strongly that one of the servants was involved in the case.
だから、
Which
な
is
ぜか
why
気に入らねえんすよね。
I don't like it for some reason.
気に入らないって何の話？
What do you mean you don't like it?
あ、いえいえ、こっちの話っす。
No, just talking to myself. I dodged a question by joking, but I couldn't wipe out that sense of unease I felt inside me. Because of the reasoning we had arrived at was together too simple. Reasoning that anyone could arrive at, and I just couldn't accept that. If I tried flipping over the chessboard like I had learned from Kiryu-san, why is it impossible for the servants to be the culprits? If the servants really had been the culprits, they couldn't have hidden the bodies in a place that was tied to themselves. Certainly not the Rose Garden storehouse of all places, whose key that they themselves controlled. The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. That would create a lot of danger to expose. If we were to assume that they were the culprits, they had no reason to carry the bodies onto the storehouse. Did they expect us to think that so put them in the storehouse deliberately? No, that would definitely didn't make sense. When the police came in and suspect the site, all kinds of things will probably become clear. No matter how deeply careful the culprits were in carrying out the murder, some kind of traces will definitely be found. So in summary, they have everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at the game from the culprit side, it feels like there's no point in advertising the location of the corpses. If the bodies were found, a report would be sent to the police. The remaining people would become more cautious. They could start looking for those who are responsible. Anyway, none of these things would make the culprits feel any more comfortable. Just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel I read recently called Higurashi no naku koro ni, which is another game, I guess related in the same universe, but that is a whole separate thing. Anyway, Easter egg. Mystery story about 4 parts: introduction, development, turn, and conclusion. And so to commit the perfect crime, it is essential to eliminate the introduction. Right now, no one knew where grandfather was. We didn't know whether he had already become a victim or if he is one of the culprits. But this state of confusion had to have been beneficial to whoever did this. By blatantly advertising the bodies to us and declaring, hey, that's a murder case going on, the culprit had absolutely nothing to gain. Right, that we could flip the chessboard, so this blatant advertisement of bodies was itself the culprit's goal. So it may as well have been the culprit having those 6 corpses be present there meant more than the death themselves. So in other words, the culprit wanted to display these murders. To who? To us? It was a message. The culprit was trying to shove something in our faces. I don't know what it could be. At the current time, none of us could grasp anything from the vulgar mass murder except malice. Malice towards everyone, perhaps. Each one of the survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 who have been killed. Uncle Krause's death brought sorrow to Jessica's family. The death of Dad and Kiryu-san brought sorrow to me. Auntie Rosa's death brought sorrow to Maria. Goda-san's death probably dealt a shock to his fellow servants. And Shannon-chan brought grief to Rojaniki, who had been proposed to her, and to Kano-kun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now in this island had revealed an equal amount of sadness. Auntie Eva claimed that the servants were definitely in cahoots. But then how can you explain the death of Goda-san and Shannon-chan? And by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi. It was very possible to doubt Auntie Eva herself, who was acting like she was outside the net of suspicion, who might have been trying to point that suspicion at the servants. In the first place, she had managed to avoid suspicion and place on the servants with the argument about the key to the shutter. But if you looked at it from a perspective of motive, about who would gain something from these murders, Auntie Eva's name floated on top of the list. Someone is being sus.
バトラ君が何を考えてるかおばさんわかるわよ。
Buttercup, Auntie knows what you're thinking, okay?
What?
あれ？
やだな。内緒にしててくださいよ。あんなことやこんなことで頭をいっぱいにしてたなんて。
Oh no, please don't tell anyone that I had my head full of, that kind of stuff.
私がこの殺人で一番得をする。
I'm the one who would gain the most from these murders.
どうせ疑われるだろうから先に自己申告しておくわ。
Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out of the open myself. I had tried to dodge this conversation by joking around, but it looked like it hadn't worked.
遺産は兄弟の数で分割する。
The inheritance is to be divided between the
でも
siblings.
今や4兄弟は私一人。
But the 4 siblings are just me.
後ろ宮家の全財産は全て私のものになるの。
All the assets of the Yoshiramiya family will become mine.
秀吉おじさんが聞いたら予算か言えばシャレにならんっていうところっすね。
If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, "Give it a rest, Eva. It's not a joke."
ごめんね。
I'm sorry, okay?
どう取り繕ったってどうせ疑われるだろうからふざけただけよ。
No matter how I try to smooth it over, I'll just be suspected anyway, so I'm just fooling around.
だからこの殺人は私の立場から見れば私を疑わせるためのものではないかと思ってるの。
So I just been thinking from my point of view, this murder might have been planned to cast suspicion on me.
困ったことに昨べのアリバイは弱いわ。
Unfortunately, my alibi from last night is weak.
聞かせてもらってもいいっすか？
Could you tell me about it?
夕べのことを。
About last night?
バトラ君たちも知っている通り兄弟が遺産をどう食いちぎり合うかという話し合いは深夜まで続いたわ。でも何時まで続いたかは知らない。私と主人は朝が早かったからね。もう眠くて24時を過ぎたあたりで抜けさせてもらったの。そしてゲストハウスに戻って休んだわ。
As you know, the discussion of how we siblings would not part the inheritance continued until late in the night. But I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early in the morning. We were so sleepy and let ourselves out a little past midnight. We then returned to the guest house and rested there.
それを秀吉おじさん以外の誰かに証明できるっすか？
Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove
いや
that?
いや、別にエヴァおばさんを疑ってるわけじゃないっすよ。
Of course, it's not like I'm suspecting you or anything, you know?
あらどうだか。
My, I wonder about that.
証明になるかわからないけれどゲストハウスに戻ってきた時源氏さんに出迎えを受けてタオルはいるかと聞かれたわ。
I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san and asked if we needed a towel.
だから私たちがゲストハウスに戻ってきた時間は24時過ぎだと証明してくれると思うわよ。
The thing that should be enough to prove that we returned to the guest house a little after midnight.
もっとも私の仮説通り使用人たちもグルなのだとしたらこんなのアリバイにならないけどね。
Of course, if my theory was correct and the servants were all in the cahoots, that wouldn't actually make for an alibi, wouldn't it?
確かにそうっすね。
That is a point, isn't it?
ってことは俺今真犯人と推理ごっこをしてるってことになるんすか？
Does that mean that right now I'm playing detective with the real culprit?
でも私の名誉のために言わせてもらうけど遺産目当てだったならこんな変な殺人はしないわよ。
Let me say this for my honor's sake. If my goal was the inheritance, I wouldn't commit this weird kind of murder.
だって遺産相続権を喪失させるだけならどんな死に方だって構わない。
Then you should give me some ice cream, wizard. I want some. After all, if I just wanted to make them forfeit their rights to inheritance, the method of their deaths wouldn't have mattered.
むしろ事故死に見せかけた方がスマートでしょ。
On the contrary, I tried to make their deaths look like an accident, wouldn't I?
使用人たちを抱き込んで周到に計画していたならなおさらそうするでしょうよ。
If I had been roping in the servants and carefully placing everything out, that's even more reasoning I'd do that.
確かにそうっすね。
You're right about that.
営利で人を殺すならそれは常に殺人に見せるべきではない。
If you were killing someone to make a profit, you definitely shouldn't make it look like a murder.
そういうことよ。
You see?
だからおばさんは今からとてもブルーな気持ちなわけ。
So from here on, your auntie will be on the blue mood.
警察には黒幕扱いされて散々調べられるでしょうね。
I'll probably be treated as the person behind this by the police and harshly investigated.
やだやだ。
Dang, that sounds really good ice cream. Sounds like a lot too. Yeah, it kind of makes me crave frozen yogurt. Auntie Ava shrugged with a bitter smile. It was Just like it was easy to think of the servants as suspicious, it was also very easy to think of Auntie Eva as suspicious. So if we flip over the chessboard, then does that mean it was impossible for the culprit to be easily doubtful, Auntie Eva? However, if that logic would pass so easily, then motive wouldn't count for anything. No, that can't be, right? Knowing that the motive would have such a big clue towards knowing the culprit. That is why murderers throughout history have tried to ensure that their motive will not be found by skillful complicating the incidents. I don't know. Every time I flip over the chessboard, it keeps flipping from the front and back to front. Were my thoughts closing in on the truth? Or... Auntie Eva didn't want to talk to any more than that, so I headed to the window, folding my arms so that I could cool my head a little. As I looked over the parlor, I saw George, Annika, and the others gathering, talking. It looked like they were talking about the magic circle and that had been painting onto the shutter. As Uncle Hideyoshi thought back at the time, he started drawing the shape and the margins of Maria's notebook. Yes, Maria is second only to the grandfather in knowledge of the cult, so she might understand what it meant.
多分こんな感じだったと思うで。
I think it was probably something like that.
十字架をアレンジしたみたいなマークが書かれとったんや。
There was a mark like a cross, but tweaked a bit.
そしてこんな感じで外周の円を取り囲むように妙な文字がびっしり書き込まれていて、十字架の上下左右の辺とその四隅にも何か書かれていたんや。
And then there was also very closely packed together letters all inside the outer circle like this, and then there was something written on all four sides of the cross and in the empty spaces of the corners as well.
アルファベットとかそういうのとちゃうで。
It didn't look like the alphabet or something like that.
あれはよく言う古代文字とかいうやつや。
It was like they call ancient characters.
あと円周部の頂点に小さなマークがありましたな。
Also around the top of the circumference there was a small mark.
小さな丸を5つ十字状に並べ、それぞれを直線で結んだようなマークでした。
Five small circles arranged in a pulse sign in straight lines. The straight lines connecting them.
ああ、確かにそんなのも書いてあったで。
Oh yes, there's definitely something like that drawn there.
図形的には間違いなくこれや。
Yep, this was it. There's no mistaking in the shape.
細かい文字はわからんが、配列はほぼ同じや。
I don't know the exact characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same. Everyone's staring down the shape, so I stared down at it too. But what I heard, this could have been painting on the shutter of the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see. This sure is unsettling.
こんなわけのわかんねえもんを書きたがるのはじいさまだけだろ。
Grandfather's about the only one who would get into this head and to draw this nonsense.
まったくどこに行っちまったんだ。
Seriously, where did he go?
捕まえて意味を聞き出してやりたいぜ。
I want to grab him and ask what the hell this is supposed to mean. Jessica's voice contained impatience with anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say that grandfather was the culprit, but it looked like she thought that the grandfather definitely knew the culprit's identity. Certainly if you asked around for the link that bound the Ushiramiya family and the occult together, 10 out of 10 people would name grandfather. And to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning. Which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, the reason to advertise the crime is to show off to the survivors. In that case, where had grandfather and the essential recipients of this message disappeared off to?
こんな図形に何か心当たりはあるかい？
Does this shape ring any bells? Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic since there was an area of expertise. However, her appearance was one of that something separated from the events at hand. As though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter closed around her mother's corpse.
僕の第一印象ではどこか外国の十字章に似たデザインだなって思ったかな。
My first impression is that the design resembling some kind of foreign cross-like symbol.
ああ、確かにこんなデザインや。
It certainly does have that kind of design.
ということはどこぞの国と何か関係があるんか？
Does that mean it had something to do with that foreign country?
その国の十字章はもともと聖地巡礼者を守るための騎士修道士たちの紋章だったそうですな。
Of course, she has no reason to take the crown off. She's a princess. That crown symbol was originally a crest from the religious order of the Knights and was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to a sacred place.
つまりこの魔法陣には宗教的な意味があるってことかよ。
Then this magic circle has some religious meaning or something.
ますますにちんぷんかんぷんだぜ。
It started to sound like gibberish. I looked over at them, preparing to jump into the discussion. Something shocked me. Ah, here it comes. Oh, hello, Seto. Has anyone ever seen the Umineko anime like in the early 2000s? I remember this scene being recreated, and I thought it was very impactful with the way Maria's-san looked. But you know, if you haven't, I would probably recommend to skip it. But if you want like more, I guess like a shorter version of Umineko, not like super, what's the word? It's not like very, I would say it's not a good source of starting out on the series, let's put it that way. It's not a good retelling. It's just too rushed, but if you want something like quicker than just reading a 1,000-hour visual novel, then maybe you can check it out. But I would still recommend the visual novel, honestly. Maria was grinning, an eerie expression on her face that defied description. A sort of grin, almost like she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression that I wouldn't have believed Maria was capable of making. And then, she laughed. An eerie, jarring laugh. Even though I was looking at it in front of my eyes, I really didn't want to accept it was real. Yes, it is similar to Higurashi, but it's not like a very good one-to-one recreation because they had to cut a lot of content out. So as I said, it's like a shorter version. A bridge version is probably what I wanted to say. Yes, so now we have Deranged Loli.
全然違うよみんな
That's completely wrong, everyone.
こんなの見てわかんないかな
Can't you just tell just by looking? While everyone was scared out of their wits, Maria alone kept on cackling happily. After a while, that laugh suddenly and abruptly cut off. But her expression was still like something completely different from Maria.
これは太陽の7の魔法陣だよ
This is the seventh magical circle of the
書
sun.
かれてる文字はヘブライ語
The characters are Hebrew.
貸して
Lend it here.
ああ、
Yeah. Maria stole the writing materials from the son Hideyoshi's hand, and then started drawing another magic circle effortlessly right next to the one that Hideyoshi had drawn.
ね
See?
こんな図形だったんじゃないかな
It was this kind of shape, right? Yeah,
そんな図形
it was.
マリアすごいな。
What an incredible 9-year-old. Maria, that's incredible.
さすが詳しいぜ。
You really do know a lot. Maybe a little too much if you ask me. Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to make sure this was still the Maria who everyone knew so well. But Maria didn't give her any particular response. Maria started fluently writing unfamiliar characters in the corners of the shape. At the sight of the eyes of Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo instantly began to widen.
天地と左右に書かれているのは風化水道を司る天使たちの名。カサン、アレル、タリアハド、そしてフォルラク。そして斜め四方には4代の統治者たちの名。アリエル、セラフ、タルシス、ケルブ。
Written on the four arms of the crosses are the names of the angels who presided over air, fire, water, and earth. Cherson, Ariel, Tylan, and Forlok. And in the four diagonal directions of the names of the four great rulers, Ariel, Seraph, Terrace, and Cherub.
合ってる？
Do they match? Even if you are unable to clearly write over what has been seen, if you are once again shown something identical and is difficult to state as the two who are the same, ask when Maria whether they match Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again.
間違いない。そうや。確かにこんな文字が書かれとった。
It's unmistakable. Yes, these kinds of characters were definitely written there.
なんでこんなん書けるんや。
How can you write something like that?
あと演習部にも文字が書かれておりました。
There were also characters written around the circumference. Whoops. Sorry. I meant to undo my emotion. It's from the Old Testament book, Plasm 116, verse 16 and 17. You must at least read the Bible. Acting as though knowing this was only common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. After some moments, Roshaniki returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak.
すごいね。驚いたよ。
That's incredible. I'm surprised.
それでこの魔法陣にはどんな意味があるんだい？
So what meaning does this magic circle have?
太陽の力を借りる魔法陣だよ。
It's a magic circle to bar the power of the sun.
黄金で描き、護符にして身につけたる者はいかなる牢獄であろうとも束縛から逃れ自由を得られる力を授けられる。
He who wears it as a talisman drawn in gold shall receive the power to break free from the bonds of any prison and gain freedom.
束縛から逃れ自由を得られる。
Break free from the bonds and gain freedom?
意味深だぜ。
Sounds deep.
この束縛という意味は何も肉体的なものだけを指さないと解釈されている。
The word bonds is not limited in any interpretation of some kind of physical object.
だから縛られて牢屋にいる人ばかりに意味があるわけじゃないよ。
Therefore, it does not hold any meaning for people locked in an actual
しがらみ
jail.
や逃れぬ運命など精神的な束縛からの解放も意味してるんだよ。
It can also refer to the release of a mental bonds, such as ties of obligation and inescapable fate.
しがらみや逃れ
Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say?
これまた意味深だな。
Tells us pretty deep.
しかしさっぱりわからん。
I really don't understand.
それとあの6人の遺体とどんな関係があるっちゅうんや。
What's that have to do with those 6 bodies?
束縛からの解放どころか殺された上に倉庫に閉じ込められてたんやで。
They were killed and stuffed in the storehouse, weren't they?
別にその6人のために魔法陣が描かれてるわけじゃないね。
It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes.
魔法陣のために6人はそこにいるんでしょう。
The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle.
お気の毒だよ。
It is truly pitiful.
どういう意味だい？
What do you mean?
魔法陣のために6人がいるってのは一体。
What in the world do you mean when you say the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle? Maria lifted her index finger and waggled it as if they were making fun of us.
それは演習部に書いてるよ。
That's written around the circumference.
読めないかな。
Can't you read?
詩編第116編16節と17節。
Lesson 116, verse 16 and 17.
読んであげるよ。
I'll read it for you.
主は私の枷を解かれました。
Lord has freed me from my chains.
私はあなたに感謝の生贄を捧げ、主の皆を呼ぶでしょう。
I will offer you to the sacrifice of thanksgiving and call on the name of the Lord. See? Shit, Thanksgiving already?
ねって何を言ってるのかさっぱりだぜ。
See, you say, I have no idea what you're saying.
生贄だってのか。
You're saying that they're sacrifices? Sacrifices for a Beato-san. If the part of them that Maria had just read aloud was the vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying that the benefit of this magic circle requires sacrifices to be offered in exchange. So, inside the storehouse where the magic circles have been drawn, sacrifices have been offered. It looked like everyone has slowly arrived to that same conclusion. Some were shocked, others spat out, they're insane, as if they punched their knees. This was starting to become a seriously disturbing story. And we couldn't accept it nor understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circles or curses other people believe in. That's their right, and I won't pick a fight with them. But they did kill Dad and the rest as sacrifice for some bullshit like that. I couldn't stand by that feeling. I better still be discussing over to talk about some inheritance. As I stated, getting pissed off with a feeling of between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle everyone was in and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. That letter from the witch, Beatrice, that Maria read aloud at last night's dinner. It felt like ever since that point No, this whole mansion, this whole island, it's just begun to draw into some kind of peculiar world. That's right. When I think about it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day unto another world. With the phone and the radio interrupted and the island shut off by the typhoon, you could now call it another world cut off from the real one. Yes. On this island right now, it's perfectly normal for witches to send letters and for those sacrifices to be offered to magic circles. So, what will happen next? Will some weird person wearing goat mask start doing the Bond Festival dance or something? It's no good. It's no good. I don't get it. The inside of my head is all screwed up. I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness. The opposing emotions all swirled up together and they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and entrust my mind and body to the spiral swallowing me. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a distant memory. It was from when I was very young. I had fortunately seen the scary occult movie on TV, and for a while I haven't even been able to go to the bathroom by myself. That old bastard giving me an exaggerated laugh and said this.
なあバトラ。
Hey, Batora.
どうして悪魔だのオカルトだのってのをわざわざこうして映画にすると思う？
What do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and occult and such?
ねえからだよ。
It's because they don't exist.
そんな滑稽なもんは地球のどこにもねえのさ。
Something that ridiculous can't be found anywhere on the planet.
ねえからわざわざ見たくて作るんだよ。
Because they don't exist. People want to see them and go out of the effort making them.
だから俺はオカルト映画なんてちゃんちゃらおかしくて笑っちまうってんだ。
That's why those occult movies just make me laugh.
俺に言わせりゃ悪魔やら妖怪やらより今年度の収支報告や機嫌を悪くした女房の方が1億倍も怖えってもんだぜ。
If you ask me, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call and angry wives are 100 million times scarier.
さらに言うぜ。俺に言わせりゃな。
I'll go further, alright, if you ask me.
怖がるってのは心と生活にゆとりのある連中の娯楽的感情なのさ。
being scared is an emotion for the entertainment of people who have too much time in their hands and too much empty space in their minds.
暇でしょうがないから。連中は変わった感情で心を遊ばせたくて、悪魔だの、オカルトだのって文化を作り出したんだよ。
If they had so much free time, they don't know what to do with it. So in order to play around with the unusual emotions, they created a culture of demons and monsters and stuff. That's one way to look at it. Seriously, why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? I was totally taken in. To hell with that shit. This is a human world, man. As if I give a crap about witches, demons, and magic circles and sacrifices. The human who killed Dad and everyone else is still on the island. That's all there is, right? Next is her speaking to my heartless Kiryu-san.
チェスや将棋ってね、
You know, in chess and shogi.
終盤の終盤、詰めの最後の段階に入れば入るほど最善手は限られてくるのよ。
The deeper you proceed into the mating attack, the very last move of the endgame, the more limited your best possible moves become.
だから自分が追い詰めている、
Therefore, in that very moment when you're backing someone against the
あるい
wall,
は追い詰められているというその時、
or someone is doing the same to you,
両者の手は限りなく読みやすくなるのよ。
both players' moves become infinitely easier to read.
つまり完全に追い詰められて打つ手なしって思ったその時こそ最も読みやすい瞬間なのよ。
In other words, you are completely cornered and you think you have no moves left. That is the moment when it's easiest to read your opponents.
でも守勢に立った人間はどうしても考えが固くなって相手の手を読むことにまで考えが至らない。
However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they forget to read the opponent's moves.
そういう時はね、
That's when
チェス盤をひっくり返すの。
you flip over the chessboard. With all my strength, I slapped my face with both hands. Pow pow. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand anything and you're completely cornered just like I am now, isn't that the perfect time to flip over the chessboard? With us put on the defensive, we couldn't even guess the culprit's scheme. If you flip it over and looked at the other way, just how far could you see? First off, at the time the murders were committed by the culprit, they knew that the island was cut off by the typhoon. So that they should have understood that even if you carried out the murders, they weren't be able to get away with the next morning. In short, that the culprit had begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, the bastard even tossed the corpses in the storehouse, while doing the courtesy of telling us that they are here with their weird graffiti. In other words, since they had probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show us them. If we had been dim and hadn't noticed the sort of shit, perhaps the culprit's goal would not have been achieved. If you think about it this way, that murdering maniac, since this morning he must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we hadn't been so kind as to discover what was on the storehouse, all of us at hard work and preparation that had done last night would have just gone poof. What did the culprit want to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of us bodies had their faces noticeably destroyed. A grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after death? So it hadn't been the means which by the culprit had murdered. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It had meaning to those who discovered it. That the culprit wanted to show them to us. Look how brutally I killed him. Ha! After thinking this way, I really want to tell them that asshole to stop taking me so lightly. Who would dance to that tune? If I'm told please be scared, I'm just gonna say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Ushimi a battler, entrance this way, I'm the kind of guy who'll start wanting to sneak in through the window. And the next thing that had me concerned was the attempt to make a magic circle on the shutter. It was a genuine magic circle declared authentic by Eva Maria, who had been demonstrated that her knowledge of the occult rivaled grandfathers. It must have drawn that thing in pitch black darkness while holding an umbrella in one hand. Or it must have been taking them a lot of time, that a formal amount of hard work and attention to detail. Our purpose would have been worth all that effort? If something related to the occult happened in this mansion, most likely you would have automatically suspected involvement of grandfather. Did they want to make us think grandfather was involved? But if that was all they wanted, they could have drawn any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. It was like any of us amateurs could tell the difference between a genuine and a fake. However, this magic circle was genuine. Furthermore, it had been written in Hebrew. So this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone like knowledge of the occult. Messages are a form of communication. You send them and hope for a reaction from the other person. Reaction. For some reason, we couldn't find grandfather now. I don't know how grandfather could have managed to see the magic circle on the shutter, but he had chosen to hit himself in the reaction to that sign. No, it was a trap to make us suspect grandfather's involvement. You could read it either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was the culprit hoping to get out of this by showing the imitation of the occult? Somehow that felt like a culprit's weak point. A section of Beatrice's letter that Maria had read aloud during the last night's dinner sprang back into mind. The part when I asked that you enjoy your battle of wits. Sounds like fun. This is the battle of wits between us and the witch? Which will be first, us being swallowed up by your cult games? Or me revealing for who you are? Haha, this feels like foreshadowing. There's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? Oh, we made it to 2-hour mark and I was given food to me, so would you guys prefer I went a little ahead or I could just stop it here? Because I think I should stop it here. Even though we did have some scuff earlier, at least we got back to where we last left off. Let me save. Whew. I think we can end it actually. It's a good stopping point. Oh, that was a lot of talking as per usual. Put some tunes. Let's go back to my room. Well, that was fun. Thanks for those who came by and lurked a bit. I'll probably go back to stream maybe next week, because this coming few days I'm gonna be very busy with convention stuff. It's gonna be very hectic for me. So please pray for my sanity. I'm glad you enjoyed the Wizard. So yeah, I'm gonna be at a convention this Saturday, and then next week I'll be at LA Comic-Con, so if you're in the area, please stop by for October. Either way, the night market is just going to be a one-day thing, so it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, thank you those who stopped by, lurked. Sorry about the scuff earlier. I'll most likely edit that out when I post the VOD on YouTube. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy a return to form to our fall... like our autumn tradition of playing Umineko and hopefully not scrapping it for a whole nother year. Because we still got a long way to go. But believe me, it gets good later on. So yeah. Excited for Spooky Month, yes. And Anniversary Month next month. Why? Yeah, I'll be parting ways now just so I can have my dinner. It is getting to that time now. So, I'll see you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.